There are the speakers from Finland are Maarit, Kahila-Tani.
I am here.
Good, that's why I wanted to. I just want to check who my speakers are. It's all very well to share, but if we don't know who your speakers are, that's a problem. Then there is the example of Sipoo, Mikkeli, and other cases, Kirsti, Kovanen. That's you, good. So now I know all my speakers. Thank you very much. Okay. Erik Vind hasn't come yet, and Geoghegan hasn't come yet. But I expect it.
Would you like me to go and get Philip?
I think I would. Actually, I would like you to go and get Philip because we're after time now. Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Does this, yes, this one is working. While we wait for some people who are enjoyed their lunch too much and so are only beginning to arrive now, while we are waiting for them, let me say to you that I am going to propose, I have already proposed to Erik Vind and I shall propose to Geoghegan that they who are the two non-Finnish speakers, here's Erik Vind, should exchange places so that Erik will speak third and Geoghegan will speak fifth and last. The Finnish speakers will stay in the same order as they are now, which means that the first speaker will, whom I know, is Tuija-Liisa Soininen. Is that right? Yes. And she will speak first, and her subject, she is head of department, Pirkanmaa Provincial Museum. She must tell us where Pirkanmaa is for the benefit of the non-Finnish, non-Finns, and the title is Adopt a Monument. Adopt a Monument. Now, I'm going to ask you to stand here and wait for Geoghegan to come, because we want at least all the speakers to hear all the talks, but Geoghegan is late, and he should be here now, but he is not. I apologize to you, but... Erik Vind is here. Yes, I know. That's fine. And I would like to remind you that every talk is meant to be 10 minutes. So if you suddenly get the speakers, I mean, get a scribbled note from me on the 10th minute, it means that you should be coming to an end fairly soon afterwards in order to keep the time. I will not be too rough, but I have to keep roughly the time. I can start, but I don't think it's fair that all the speakers should not be here, because in discussion, they should know what the other speakers have said. And I've sent somebody to find Geoghegan, who's the only one who's not here. Our three Finnish colleagues are here, you are here, but our one non-Nordic is not here, or non-Scandinavian.
I heard Philip say he was going to lunch at some cafe somewhere else.
Oh, you can't find him.
That's what he said.
Did you find him?
No.
Okay, we start. We start.
Okay.
Okay. So in that case, we start with Tuija-Liisa Soininen, head of department, Pirkanmaa Provincial Museum, and her subject is Adopt a Monument. To you.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to Adopt a Monument World. Sorry? There's a microphone here too, but you can't listen. Yeah, okay. Okay. So, I was saying that welcome to
Can you hear?
No.
You can't hear me?
Now, yes.
Yes. Very near.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
shit. Welcome to the world of Adopt a Monument. So I'm working for the Museum Center Vapriikki and there for the Pirkanmaa Provincial Museum Department. Years ago, the vision for the conservation of cultural environment in our museum was set up to be so that cultural environment is maintained for the people and with people. And the Finnish Adopt Monument is one of the tools created for the realization of that vision. It is founded on the insight that we can achieve best results if for the culturally sustainable development if we are focusing on soft protection work. And soft protection means basically that you try to do things by facilitation and communication. The soft protection is also related to the concept of soft power, meaning, for example, that the best propaganda is not propaganda. And the goal is to influence and change people's attitudes and so that in a more innovative and facilitatory way. The goal of Adopt a Monument is not a certain state of the certain desired state of cultural environment protection or management, but a good process where what is capable to identify needs and values which are crucial for the understanding the social meanings of some environments. When I was asked to have this speech, one of the requests was that could I ponder how people could be motivated to so-called extensive efforts for the cultural environment. And as you can see in the picture shows that by having fun. And you could suppose too that authorities, we are also authorities, we shouldn't be controlling too much. For example, according to Finnish Antiquities Act, covering the archaeological site is strictly forbidden, and I think these kids here are just building up a hut there. And by the way, they are adopters too by their primary school. And there's a First World War fortification there. What is it? Sorry?
It's difficult to understand you here. Maybe you can either make your microphone louder or speak a bit louder. It's very difficult.
Is it okay? I don't know what to do then, because there is no...
I think it's better without.
Is it better without if I try to?
Yes.
Okay, good. Two microphones and both are not working very well. Anyway, what does it mean to be an adopter then? What does it give to you? To adopt a monument means that, of course, you are taking care of sites. You are also organizing events. You are even trying to make management plans if you are capable to do that. And, well, maybe the main thing is anyway that you're spending time with others in all sorts of places and environments. And those places can be, for example, archaeological sites, built heritage environments, places where are historical structures. Some adopters feel like being local cultural guides to be persons whom you turn in need of information of some region's history. Then there are also other people who don't want to engage themselves to one place for a long time, but they want to participate, for example, the Adopt a Monument camps, which we are arranging every year. And, well, who can be adopted then? We have got associations, schools, quite many of them are, I mean, the associations are organizations of residents. Then there are some companies. And what are then the, for example, archaeological sites in our program? There are dwelling sites of Stone Age dwelling site, Iron Age cairns, Bronze Age cairns, hill forts, and many kind of fortifications. And for example, this Pälkänen medieval church ruin here. And sometimes you don't quite agree with adopters about their targets. For example, here the adopters would like to they have a dream to have a glass roof on that ruin, and when it's situating in the middle of fields and on countryside, you can imagine it's not, you can have many opinions about that. But I like this picture, for example, because of those dandelions, because, well, we haven't seen them yet very much in Finland this spring. This is one of the newest ICOMOS in our built heritage site. This music stage or bandstand, how do you say? And there the adopter is a small musician group of musicians, and it doesn't mean that they are playing there all the time, but they are also giving space and time for others, and it's also written in that agreement we have made. Then there is, for example, a cellar. I don't know what that picture is there on the back wall. Hope it doesn't mean anything bad. Anyway, this is situated in the middle of the park in the city of Tampere, and there was a huge moisture problem. There was about 0.5 meter water there about a year ago on the floor. And these people there, they made a huge attempts to get financing for repairings. And first they founded a community funding campaign, and then they went almost to every department leaders of city of Tampere and asked money, and they could reach about over 20,000 euros for that. And this is just an example of a thing that we as authorities couldn't do, but they could. Some of them likes to set up information boards which are made in cooperation with us when it comes to the content. But when we return to the original question, how is it possible to engage people to so-called extensive efforts for cultural environment or management? I think it might have been just the motivation we thought when we started Adopt a Monument years ago. And, well, authority had a good project which should be launched to society. And as a result, we could expect, for example, better maintained sites, and maybe people's awareness of their own heritage could grow. And I think we even bragged about giving their heritage, people's heritage, back to people. And well, after 9 years working, we think a bit differently now. And we do realize that there's a problem if you are trying to create a citizen-based activities in a program created or designed by museum. And also, first, we did try to find good sites, proper sites, which could be in good places and be symbolic and practical to use. But nowadays, we try to reach the right groups, because they are much harder to find groups that are acting in a kind of a sustainable foundation. I also find myself thinking that maybe we were too good speakers at first. We knew what were the people's needs. We knew why they should participate at Adopt a Monument, and we knew what Adopt a Monument would give them. And we kind of said so much that quite many people committed to work, but maybe it's no surprise that there were some cases we never heard of them again after they had signed the agreements. And so we have come to the conclusion that the true desire to do something always comes from within, if you want to do something for the cultural environment. And there must be needs that already are present there. And what we can do is to nurture those needs with information there. And it kind of can start off a kick-off process which ends up with two questions where we have to have and give the right answers. Can I do something, and is my contribution really needed? And the answer should be a big yes. And we also realized that it is an ongoing process. People are always asking themselves, do I really need this stuff? What does it give to my image or my brand? And am I really needed? Can I do something? So we think we have to give the answers also constantly and over again. And finally, a few principles we try to follow. They are our primary principles. For example, well, the doing it together and voluntariness, they are built inside the Adopt a Monument. But this is very important that people who are coming to Adopt a Monument, they want to make the sites more accessible for other people. Adopt a Monument is not kind of owning things and owning places, but you want to give joy to other people. And of course, we hope that people are doing tangible management work. You kind of earn the right to do something and organizing events and so on if you do something really, really important there. There's tolerance because we try to also foster understanding for different cultures and traditions, which may sound a little bit foreign today. And yes, the museum or any organizer should be content with his or its role as a facilitator. And although we try to give so much freedom as possible to our adopters, we wish and we want and we demand that all the things, the management work is done properly according to proper plans. And if there were a 10th commandment, it would be keep learning all the time, change the direction if it doesn't work. And by applying these principles and listening to the needs of our adopters, we try to keep the Adopt a Monument on a sustainable foundation also in future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to suggest the following procedure regarding questions. A question for information, I think, should come immediately after the talk, so please stay here. If there's any question, I have one, which is asking simply for information. Questions which are questions of policy or principle or these sort of things, I think should wait for the general discussion that we will have at the end. Is there any question of information? There's one at the back and there's one here, so I will start off. How many people, roughly, do you have involved in this project?
At the moment, about 500, if we are counting all also them who are participating short-term projects.
Thank you. The person at the back, Mr. Carras.
Do you give any credit to the people, like for instance, if they built this hut, do you call it after them, or do you put a plaque on it and say this was adopted by Mr. So-and-so or the so-and-so family? In other words, do you give them recognition?
Yes, we do give a recognition, and also the teachers of those children, if you meant them. And by the way, we got the Europa Nostra Grand Prix last year, and we kind of gave it also to those adopters. It was not meant, we thought it so that it was not meant only for us. And I think there have been big celebrations in the Adopter Monument Network about half a year then after getting the award.
That's wonderful. Question.
How and whom do you recruit? How do you recruit and whom do you recruit?
I think it's in kind of a process. As I said, first we tried to find the good sites, and then we tried to inform that we have got those sites in our internet pages, and we told about those sites, and in different connections we talked about them. But now we are more aiming to have the right groups, so that, well, for example, our unit, our museum, we have got about 10 workers there, and everyone is meeting in different connections, hundreds of people a year. We just keep talking about this, and well, it's in internet sometimes. Well, Adopter Monument is a good product. If you are talking about Adopter Monument in media, it usually kind of exceeds the news threshold, and you can also have publicity by that. But we have also maybe thought a little bit, what is the limit to have those adopters? Maybe we just want to concentrate on the good groups with whom we can do many things, and maybe, well, we have asked a lot at the moment to develop the Adopter Monument work also to other parts of Finland, and we are just pondering what shall we do with our resources. In a kind of, we also hope that our Adopt Monument groups could be so, they can ultimately, so that they can do their work themselves, so that we don't have to be there all the time. So it's a matter of resources too.
Thank you very much. Is there any other question of information? If there is not, I would like to thank you very warmly. That is a Grand Prix project from last year, so it's of extreme interest to all of us in Europa Nostra. Thank you very much indeed. I would now like to call Maarit Kahila-Tani, Development Manager Mapita Oy, to speak on the subject SoftGIS.
So, hello everyone. My name is Maarit Kahila-Tani and I come from Mapita Limited. The title, I have to admit that I was a bit late with the title, and that's why the title is a bit funny. But here is my correct, real title. So, at Mapita, we have been interested how we can foster better participation and engagement. Here I want to say and highlight that I don't come from the field of cultural planning or cultural heritage. My field is more urban planning and public participation. But I think these challenges might be also familiar to you. At least in urban planning projects and processes, we have these tensions. We have only few people who are active and willing to participate. These meetings where we meet people and share the ideas, those concentrate more on resisting changes. Public participation also happens very late in the process, and it leads to non-influential participation. And what is very important to us is the data and information we gather from the residents, from the active people. It remains rather invisible in these processes. And these methods, tools, ways to organize are very demanding for the experts as well. So we think that we need new tools. We need new digital tools to approach people and to engage them and to grasp the knowledge they have of their living environment. But we also need tools where we face people and meet people and have discussions. But we need to complement the existing tool set. Mapita is actually a spin-off company from Aalto University. Since 2005, we have developed a method called SoftGIS. That's why it was put to my title as well. So I have worked since 2005 with the method called SoftGIS. That was the name originally, and now at this company we call it as Maptionnaire. And we have been eager and interested to understand what kind of values, knowledge, understanding we all have of our living environment. We think that we people are the real experts who really know what's happening in their local surroundings. And we think that if we grasp this information, we can get very valuable data. This data was actually gathered in the Helsinki city plan process. Helsinki is a city that needs to be densified a lot during the coming years. And there the urban planners knew that when they start the new city plan process, the people are going to be very active and resist the coming change. Therefore, they wanted to start the process differently. And they contacted us, and then we organized with them a way to gather information from the residents. During 1 month, we received over 32,000 locations marked on the map. Over 4,000 people answered and gave their valuable insight. And here you see the end result. And what was most interesting for the urban planners was that when they asked about the new housing places, they got a lot of comments regarding that aspect. So people are not all against, but rather often when we face people, we only find those people who are against. Well, then something about Maptionnaire. So Maptionnaire is kind of platform, framework, or how do you want to put it? It's also SaaS, software as a service. And it's global service, and we have customers from Finland, from States, from Europe, who design their own projects by using Maptionnaire. So we just give them the platform. And Maptionnaire kind of consists of 3 cores. It has the editor tool that allows you to design the surveys or the communication platforms. Then the most important is, of course, how we reach the people. So it has to respond to every device we are using. So that's one very important aspect, that it cannot be a separate app that you need to download. It has to really has to come to your device. And then it also contains this analysis tool that allows you to analyze this geographic information you have gathered. And we have done a lot of projects in research and related to urban planning projects. In research, these teams vary a lot. We have then also approached many different user groups. We have approached children, elderly, and of course middle-aged people. In urban planning, we have this tool has been used in various phases of the process, in the beginning and when there has been made these proposals and so forth. So there are now altogether over 70 research projects and over 150 more related to urban planning projects. So there is interest towards this kind of approach, for sure. But now I will come more close to your topic here. This all started 2 years ago when we had a research project with researchers from Tokyo University. In Hanko, in city of Hanko, we wanted to collect memories from the residents and their stories. I can perhaps use this one. Yeah, nice. So we wanted to try what kind of stories we can capture and how are people comfortable of sharing those stories. We also used the data bank the city had of the old existing photos, and we thought that this activates people to share also their own photos. It was a very nice project, and we got a lot of new understanding how this kind of tool can be used in this field. So we got a lot of pictures, memories, some were rather recent pictures, and some were from the old days. But then also these written stories throughout the city. And the urban planners in Hanko, they really valued this kind of information. Though it's a small city, about 10,000 inhabitants, you could assume that, well, we reach anyway anyone, but it's not true. And they really thought that with this kind of tool, they can get more valuable information. Then this Hanko case produced or activated a new project. Urban planners from Sipoo contacted us to come and do something with them. Now we have done 2 projects with them, one in Mikkeli and one in Söderkulla. Here what was interesting was that you can see here the dots on the map. These are the heritage, the very preserved buildings that the experts have evaluated as valuable buildings. And in this survey, we asked the residents to evaluate the same buildings. What is their kind of feeling of those buildings? So the experts were eager to kind of test their own evaluation. So we had these separate places, but then we also had landscapes. And again, these landscapes were chosen by the experts, but then we asked the residents who comment these landscape areas. And also the residents were asked to comment new places, what they see valuable. And they wanted to test whether it's in line with these places experts have chosen. And it was very, I think, interesting case, because at least in Finland, this kind of evaluation of buildings that should be preserved is made mainly by experts. So it's very interesting to how we can broaden this kind of way of doing, so that we also reach those people who have this understanding and information. Then third example comes from Santa Monica.
California.
And here they also linked the past, the present, and the future very nicely. So they added in this survey these photos from different places, and they asked people to rate the importance of these places. And then they also asked the residents to comment what should be done in the future. And I think we have still much to do how we can use this kind of data. I mean, in these case examples, the data goes mainly to the urban planners, to the experts, but maybe it could be given also to the local people. So they could start, I was thinking this previous example, that maybe it could also activate people to do something when they notice that, okay, this is the place that other people also value and like. But this was my presentation. I think I used my time.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Well, now, as on the same principle as last time, I would like any questions for information. Yes, Public Review.
Congratulations, first of all. How do you engage people? Do you do some kind of local events? Do you have a local contact points or things like that? How do you know about this platform? And,
do I listen first all the questions, or do I?
No. You answer straight away.
very important.
For questions of information, that's the best thing.
Sorry?
For questions of information, you should answer straight away.
So, yeah, very good question. We leave this task for the local people because they know the local channels. It's very important and crucial to market the surveys, otherwise people don't find those. I mean, it's really so that you need to do a lot so that people get this information. But you can use local newspaper, you can use local radio, and actually you should use all the channels. Social media, in this Helsinki case, Helsinki used a lot of social media. And then also, of course, you can use schools, school children, you can ask them to spread the word and use the tool. And there are many ways, but you have to kind of do a strategy that how to market the survey.
Thank you. Any other question of information? Yes, two more. We start at the back, the lady.
Yes, I was just wondering about the interactivity of this map. So if I was a citizen sitting somewhere else in the neighborhood, would I have access to this particular tool? Could I input my own building or meeting place which I discovered and put it on the map? Or
Yes.
is that map sitting, say, in the planning office somewhere?
I'm not sure if I got your question correctly, but...
Well, shall I ask you to repeat it, because the truth is that you're not very audible. May I suggest you get up so that you're more audible, your voice can be heard.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, just asking about the interactivity of this map. So
Yes.
if somebody is sitting in the neighborhood somewhere
Yeah.
and has a particular spot that they have identified
Yes,
that
yes.
they love in
Yes.
common,
Yeah.
maybe an allotment, maybe a corner where young people meet,
Yeah.
would I be able to put that
Yeah.
on the map?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there are different kinds of surveys, but for example, the Helsinki case, those 32,000 locations were new markings from the respondents. So those were all made by individual people. So it's really possible, but the surveys are used also that way, that you have some location, like a building, and then you ask the questions related to that place. So either way, you can do a totally new marking or comment the existing one.
Thank you. The gentleman.
Yes, I had a question concerning the three cases you showed us.
Yeah.
Do you have the results of any of these cases,
Yeah.
like the first one you showed us with those monuments marked? And what was the result? Did it change the planning of the planners, or did it have no effect?
Well, I'm happy that Kirsti here will tell you more about the Sipoo case. So she will go into the outcome, but that I can say that these all cases have changed the way of doing things. I mean, for example, in Sipoo, they have now built the process further. For example, all this data has been now published, and people can see the comments that everyone else has made. So it's work in process in a way that it has changed it partly, but as I mentioned, there is still a lot to do. But Hanko case was more one-time case, so yeah, they were happy of the project results. They used it in that planning project, but then it kind of stopped. So.
Thank you. Well, I think that we've answered the questions of information. Thank you very much indeed. And now, because there was this reference, I noticed it as you were talking of Sipoo, and we have a speaker who will speak about Sipoo, so I'm going to change the order and ask Kirsti Kovanen, example of Sipoo, Mikkeli, and other cases. Kirsti Kovanen is Secretary General of ICOMOS International Finland. Welcome.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, everybody. I will present to you three examples. of different methods in use within different expertise and activities within normal town planning or programming of heritage in Finland. So just a short look at the framework that we have. We have a kind of a very static framework for heritage preservation or conservation in the country. It's very much regulated in the legislation. Even participation is obligatory in the land use legislation. Heritage administration is kind of a horizontal activity of several authorities. Well, characteristics of cultural heritage you will get to know during these days, but we also have a long tradition of free associations for 150 years, something like that, that everybody could join an association and start being an activist. The first one of my examples is an inventory on landscapes that has been on the way since 2011, which is one of the traditional methods of making inventories on this, in this case, landscapes of regional and national importance. So it has a really strict framework, how to work, scientific basis of recording and inventorying, and it has to be consistent with the old inventory, of course. And the final aim is to make decisions on the national level and on the regional level. And there's legal framework for this participation. And there's legal framework for stakeholders as well. Well, what was the result? I'm not going to show you a lot of pictures. I'm kind of taking highlights of these three examples. The results were in refining the inventorying method, bringing in social media, and enlarging the value basis. So these are the new wins in inventorying. On the regional basis, Facebook groups, tweets, media were engaged in a really different way than in the earlier inventories. And it still continues because the final decisions will be made maybe next year. So this is something that it looks like. And the criteria, they are those ones created within the, for the inventories by the experts, by the authorities, and of course these consistency questions. In practice, the results of this process is regional reports that include updated information and mapping, revised proposals for sites, redefinition of descriptions and the scientific basis like normally in inventories, and the raised contacts and awareness among the participants that are determined. But it's very open, of course. In the legislation, you will find as participants the authorities, the free associations, the owners, all kinds of groups, a lot of participants. What was learned during this process? Active participation in social media, but not for so-called common people. The experts were very active. And that meant that the face-to-face contacts remained the main channel for the owners and villagers, those who are directly involved in the landscapes, and during the active phases of the inventorying work. New ideas only came through in these contacts. And one of the problems is that it is very spot type. It happens now and here when I discuss with the expert what happens afterwards, how to keep that moment. People have very different time scales. It's one event, maybe the publication will come after 2 years, and what I read in them is not very much related what I remember from 2 years ago. Even the regional inventory and the national inventory have different time scales. So how to keep the momentum of this meeting people? That was one of the things to do. And in some regions, people reacted people and authorities reacted in this way. They created the continuum in maintenance of these landscapes. Second example, this is the Mikkeli case that we already heard from Maarit. So this is a short frame, what was said already before. Actually, what the urban planner wanted is that the aim was to find the spirit of the place and common understanding, and getting people's memories, ideas into the system. What was really new was the collective evaluation of old buildings by the inhabitants themselves, like we heard. And this was in practice done by 2 Facebook groups that were established and maintained together with the local heritage association. In addition, this activity offered places to meet and be active, which is one of the basic things in the participation. And of course, the practical benefits. This is what they look like. I will go through. They use these Instagrams and many social media. The aim was to lower the threshold between administration and citizens and create direct contacts on community basis, which is different than the municipality, on community basis. And the idea was to create positive images on local level. Some lessons learned from these kind of different strands of activities was that the field of activities can be widened even in the municipality. Positive attitudes are possible to have as a result, and the best results are gained when the activists can work in their own pace. That's very important. Not to force them to work within the pace that the bureaucrats want to work. The problematic points are those of the practical things. Municipalities work with paper, reports, and these projects actually, in order to produce reports, need a mediator to produce these reports. And the resuming of the results is burdensome. They didn't get as many more photographs that they wanted to have, even though that was one of the main strands of the collecting data. Rights to the materials, a very difficult question that has to be solved. And the link to the spatial information proved to be problematic. The projects will continue with a data bank and new technical tools to handle the problems, and new web pages that will be maintained by the local actors, the heritage associations. More information you can find on the website. So this is the Maptionnaire. And my third example that I'm going to go through quickly. This is a whole municipality, a whole city, town, that wanted to create a program for having heritage as a resource for the municipality. And they tackled a wide variety of activities through systematic inventories and recording for the urban planning use, heritage education, heritage brands and tourism, documentation of immaterial heritage, and education materials. This was all done. I'm not going through all these because it's getting tight with the time. But their idea was to first raise awareness in one's own heritage within the municipality. That means that the target group was first the administration itself, school children. And then they widened the field of actors to all citizens. How they used the different groups is somehow here later. And here as well, what the experts produced, what the artists produced, what the citizens produced. And the technical framework was finally a Wikipedia platform, partly interactive. It looks like this. They achieved a lot of, really a bulk of tools for town planning, education, and administration itself. Data banks, and so on. Books, new books that, on new topics that were not published before. Cooperation, but for more, what they used this overarching program that focused on historic timelines of the municipality attached to the area and the messages by the people, by the inhabitants of the municipality. And then they used the spearheads as brands of the municipality, so it was a kind of a nice model for programming and making really heritage as a resource for the municipality. What was learned from these projects? It's good to take a look first at oneself, the closest people, like the staff, villagers. And that was also a surprise that there's use for heritage skills in enterprises. And many people felt that this is a long-term thing. It brings the feelings of identity. And it, of course, brought new practices for the town administration. All these three examples present the kind of a interim phase where we are shifting from technical to people-centered approaches. And you see there are tools for all kinds of activities where the administrators look for new audience and new users, and they still feel that they are like two sides or two fields. Interactivity has its benefits and its limits. Like we learn from these, the results are good as long as people have fun. And you have to solve some problems during these processes, like where to keep the permanent information and how it will be archived. Copyrights, a really difficult, tough question, has to be solved. And of course, the traditional inventorying methods will be changed and they need improvements. And they also need to think about maintenance and continuation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, let me ask for questions of information as fast as possible, please. Yes, madam.
Can you estimate how big part of the population have been contributing into this participatory process? How many did answer of the population, the Facebook messages and so on?
I cannot give you exact answers, but in these memories of Mikkeli, it was very high, because it was born as activist movement against one demolition, so everybody wanted to take part in that. But if you start from the municipality side, like this heritage program for Mikkeli, it depends where you go. If you go for a local community, like a village, you can have a very nice group participation. But if you go for a whole municipality, then you have to use the not so personal contacts, and you will get not so many answers. Not really. But in this case, luckily, we got enough so that we could draw conclusions.
I don't see any other hand up. If not, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And let us go on. We'll now leave Finland and go to Denmark, and I will ask Erik Vind to come and speak on Dragor, an outstanding example of a community effort to preserve a historic town. Erik.
Thank you, Costa. Good afternoon, everyone. Just to pronounce this name is an effort. It's called Dragor. Say loud. Dragor. Dragor. Thank you that I have the possibility to bring this message to you. How to commit people and why to commit people. And if I should start with the conclusion, because we've heard so many fantastic testimonials during the morning, I want to stress two things. In order to involve people, people have to feel unique. They have to feel owners of a project. And then in a community, you also have to have some shakers, some lighthouses, some people who can push and really make things move. And if I should say something of the backside, then if you work so hard on a town which is listed, it's a very expensive community, so it only attracts a certain group of people who can afford it. And this can create enclaves which have special views on special things. It doesn't need to be bad, but it's something you have to keep in mind when you work this way. Well, historic Dragor is a unique and authentic seafaring town dated back from the 18th, 19th century. It's also a living, working environment close to Copenhagen. If you come to Copenhagen, you get in a taxi, it's 10 minutes away. The old town, and what I'm talking about is a village within the town. The old town, harbour, adjoining coastal landscape, make a coherent entity that's unusually well preserved in a European context. This has been achieved by effort initiated by dedicated local activists and kept up over a period of almost 100 years by the resident residents, house owners themselves, in a unique cooperation with local authorities. Thanks to skilled town planning, building administration, combined with thorough documentation and continual dialogue to increase awareness involving active local participation and open public debate, it has proved possible to maintain Dragor, particularly the architecture there, building traditions and historic town layout right up to the present day. It's a working town, it's not just a reservoir. Historic Dragor is a town community on the coast of the island of Amager. Amager is an old Dutch name, came to Denmark in the 1600s. Situated just 12 kilometers south of the capital of Copenhagen, the whole municipal area of Dragor has just over 14,000 inhabitants, and of those, some 850 live in the area of the historic town. The conservation area of the old town and harbour covers approximately 11 hectares and contains about 350 properties, 75 of which are scheduled for protection according to national provisions for the conservation for historic buildings. The town thus consists of one of the largest concentrations of listed buildings in Denmark. The whole of the old town, with both listed and not listed buildings, is categorized as worthy of preservation and is covered by the local plan for preservation, introduced in 1974 as the first plan in Denmark and is being followed since. There's a specific local plan for the harbour area. The town also has the official status of Site of National Historic Interest. Here we have the town within the town. What makes Dragor unique as an example of extraordinary conservation effort are the following characteristics. Conservation measures have proved effective by means of continuous and close cooperation with substantial and meaningful dialogue between local politicians, administrators, residents, and activists over a course of the last 100 years. Preservation has been set out as a policy goal and upheld successfully in itself an intangible cultural heritage, providing the context in which the inhabitants and the town authorities combine efforts to look after the preservation-worthy environment. As a result of this, it has been possible to preserve the town, harbour, and closely surrounding landscape virtually intact as an environment and an authentic seafaring milieu with its particular town plan and simple architecture from the time of the trade with the great sailing ships in the 18th and 19th century. What makes these things work? Who are the shakers and who are the movers? Well, the townhouse owners have been very powerful as a driving force in the conservation work. The effort towards conservation have their origins in what town people want. The inhabitants of the town have themselves taken responsibility and shown respect for the need to follow local building traditions and adapt both new building traditions and alterations to existing ones to fit into the historic context, even if sometimes this can be difficult and more expensive. Restoration work is being carried out by house owners themselves or by local craftsmen with knowledge of traditional methods and materials from an early, as in the beginning of the 20th century, high degree of awareness has existed about the old town's unique cultural history and architectural value. The town people and their associations have participated actively in the development and preservation of the town. Even though the conservation measure implemented in Dragor as the expression of a community effort, it is absolutely necessary to mention the contributions by 2 persons. The one was the doctor in the town, a man called Paul Henning Dick, and what he did was constantly getting the owners of the houses to be aware of where they were living and how they were living and what the values were in the architecture. The other one was an architect called Paul Abrahamsen, and the nice thing with his work was that he was a staff member in the town administration. That combination was very, very unique for Dragor. And he published 2 books about preservations and citizens, and a book called The Preservation of Dragor, and they have also got international publicity. And these 2 persons have been unique for the work about concerning this town. The preservation model and the structural town qualities that distinguish Dragor have been and are a unique example of maintenance of a human scale and respect for the community in a town environment, both historically and in the contemporary context. The town and its town planning have been and are today an inspiring example of the type of high-density, low-rise housing building that has become attractive concepts in Denmark and elsewhere in Europe in our time. A third player here is the town council. From a very early stage, the town council showed fundamental understanding of the desirability of preserving the town's unique cultural heritage. Its openness to cooperation with town people has been precondition for the success of the conservation strategy. Essential decisions have been taken along the way to secure conservation values. The last player here is the town local administrative staff. They have shown high professional knowledge and skill, both in carrying through physical planning that ensure that the town's preservation-worthy features have their due place in the municipal and local plans, and also in carrying through the meticulous town planning and building administration. The local administration authorities have, to a great extent, succeeded in advising on and publishing the goals of conservation to private developers and property owners. The staff of the town planning, buildings supervision and cultural development departments and the local libraries and archives have also contributed to this work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erik. Questions of information, please. Everybody is fully informed. Thank you, Erik. You've done a very good job. Thank you. Now our last speaker is Philip Geoghegan from Ireland, but he is speaking in a pan-European cause, and a cause very close to the heart of many of us in Europa Nostra. In case there should be any doubt about that, I will hold up to you the linen bag, which has Europa Nostra, ENtopia, which is the program, our Greek conservation organization, and the island concerned SiKinos. I'm not advertising SiKinos, I am advertising ENtopia, and over to you. Do you need this?
I'm used to using an Apple, and this stuff is far too complicated for me. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't quite hear Costa's introduction there because I was worrying about the hardware here.
Well, don't worry. Let me then interrupt you to say that Philip is a professor in Ireland whose idea ENtopia is. Well, the word is not his. The word comes, as he will perhaps say, from a Greek town planner, town and country planner called Konstantinos Doxiadis, who wrote a book on this subject. It is to be contrasted with utopia. That's how he contrasted, and we also contrasted with dystopia, which is something which exists in all too much of Europe. And Philip produced, on the basis of a council meeting in Bruges that comes from years ago from the heart of Europa Nostra, this program, which is currently operating in about 8 countries from Europa Nostra organizations, NGOs. Over to you, Philip.
There's not much more for me to say. Thanks, Costa. But apart from anything, getting this show on the road, getting ENtopia accepted, has taken a long time because it isn't really in the format that that Europa Nostra has been used to, and it's quite labour intensive, and that can be also difficult to make it work. But I've had one superb colleague through the years of trying to get this sorted, and that has been Costa, and it has been extraordinarily valuable to share with him the title which I chose of ENtopia, and I think that's probably why you sorted why you sorted it that way. But that in itself has been, for me, over a very long period of time. Doxiadis' work was an inspiration because it didn't stop at being technical and urban, and had a very strong spiritual underlying commitment to the idea of community. And that was way back in the 1960s. And if you read it today, it's still a very good read. So as a good place to live in, it seemed to me that after some 10 years of being on the jury of the awards committee, 5 years of which were as chairman, that we were getting an extraordinary range of quality projects from all over Europe, something like 200 each year. But because I'd been involved in urban design and the landscape and villages and towns, I could see that we were not, even though it was included for award, we were not attracting those kind of interests. So the proposal was really to do something which wasn't the award scheme so much as a way that we could recognize we could recognize the value of towns for their own sake, not in a competitive sense. It's always very striking when you work with a smallish community that they may not have too much to sell, but for them it's everything. And the purpose of trying to engage with small communities, because they tend not to get good support from local authorities, is to draw out from that community the local qualities which exist in every single one, and which can then be maximized. ENtopia is meant to be a network in its potential. It hasn't reached that level yet. And also a very easy, manageable guide for people who love their towns and want to do more for them. I'm not even getting the next slide properly. Yes. The slides I'm showing you are actually taken from leaflets and publications on ENtopia. So they're just to try to give you a flavour of the process that's behind it and the concern, which is to invite people to become involved, not to register them for a competition, but actually to try to get them to share the world of Europa Nostra and the concern for quality through local action. So this is, in some way, how we're trying to appeal to people to come and use it. And you've noticed I've managed to slip in that 2018 is the European Year of Cultural Heritage. Jumping very quickly and very briefly also onto how you may introduce to a small village what it is that you're about. And by no means will I try to show you a whole story, but these are some of the issues that typically a small community will really have the capacity to do work about it. Making the most of your places, it doesn't mean that you have to have the best of places, but the job is to try and bring the best out. Celebrating the qualities of place, which local people know very well, ensuring an attractive place for visitors, and every one of our countries in Europe is aware that tourism is a major economic issue as well as a good way of helping a town to reach its potential. Promoting an integrated vision for an enhanced village in the landscape, and that is a very deliberate connection between the village and the landscape, which is very strongly emphasized in ENtopia, and then programming and managing for vision fulfillment. How do you actually get things on the road and make it work? And this is, again, just a bit more of the same thing. Of these were actually produced for a local town, a local village close to us in County Wicklow in Ireland. Making the most of what's already there, enhancing the public realm. It's more of a soft project than dealing with how you look after the heritage of buildings, much more about how you look after the sense of place. Taking action on buildings at risk, which is an obvious thing, and derelict structures, ensuring an attractive place, and creating an energy plus community. This is the front page of our Places manual, which was updated about a year ago. And the manual is intended to show in a simple but not dumbed down way, as simple as possibly, what sort of capacity a village or town may work with and how it may work towards reaching potential. And in this, it's deliberately intended to be an educational program, and it needs to be transmitted at an early stage, either on paper, as the manual is, or with some kind of a meeting and a support to the town or village. Now, this would make most people turn off directly in the village if we were to produce a matrix like this. But it's absolutely essential to us in terms of setting the program to be able to say, well, this is what it's all about, and that you may take a part, you may use a part of a matrix like this, but not necessarily all. It's a checklist, and the checklist is rigorously taken through into the manual so that each part of this and its number are actually addressed in the manual in a detailed way. If I can just run down on the left-hand side here, dealing with landscape, and in the first piece, it's talking about landscape in the context of the town or village and the landscape character, so that it's asking for people to look around before they look at the town, because the town almost certainly came after the landscape. And then the second one was landscape within the town. And I had to change that to put if it occurs, because my Greek colleagues said we don't have landscape in our towns and villages, but in Ireland I can promise you we do. And so that's one context that runs across on the matrix to describing the places and its history from early times until now, examining the place and making analysis that might be a SWOT analysis using aerial maps, you know, not being too technical about it, The third thing about generating a future vision for a sustainable settlement. The right-hand side and the bottom line are intended to show policy issues which would be a raison d'etre for Europa Nostra. This is in some way to contradict the base that I've just shown you, but it's the sort of thing that happens when when you begin a program where there's half a dozen villages, and really in the end it isn't so much the villages but the place within the villages lie. And this is in Westmeath, which is in the centre of Ireland, and I describe it here as in a rural area between Collinstown and 4 villages. This area, it's given the name of Children of Lear country, which is a legend which came from Eastern Europe initially, I believe, and it's a legend which is known by every child and adult in France, in Ireland, sorry, recalling a myth from Central Europe where the children of Lear were transformed into swans in Lake Darivara by their jealous mother Aoife. There are 6 villages around, and they're integrated into a landscape of the Ice Age and support a traditional rural economy. The swans here are shown in a sculpture by Oisin Kelly in the National Garden of Remembrance in Dublin, and there's a set of stained glass windows locally in a monastery in Multifonum. And then the area itself has Christian churches from the 6th and 7th century, a 12th century priory established by the Benedictine order from France, the combination of legend, early history of the Christian Celtic Church, the Benedictine priory, the Franciscan friars from Assisi, and the 17th century plantation of these areas with model villages is witness to an extraordinary diversity of influences and nationalities, a truly European context in a lost area of rural County Westmeath. Putting that together was not something that would have happened by chance, but in effect it was by chance because it was the experimentation to find the potential of the villages which drew out this extraordinary historical background. And these I go through as quickly as I can, but it's just to show you a process which we're asking people to go through. To register, basically put your name, address, and telephone number, a couple of photographs and a written statement, and send it off as a starter. These are on an ENtopia website as well. And the application procedure happens after the registration has been acknowledged and there's been action on it, and that a small town or village will want to continue with the process. And this can be, and it often is, managed by a local authority who will then work on public participation issues through the process. But these are a slight enlargement on the matrix, talking about the surrounding landscape, the landscape within the quality of the place, genius loci that somebody mentioned before, the special atmosphere of a particular place and its landscape character. Dealing with open spaces and activities, and apply 3. These are following the structure of the manual, and then apply 3 about sustainability and looking quite seriously about what we mean and what we can achieve in terms of sustainability. You may notice that this man on a crane is Finnish, and that red paint is also Finnish, and it's up in Oulu, but that's by chance that I'm here with it. And this is really at the final stage of an application, setting forward an action plan. And it might be 5 lines thick. This is a list of the kind of things that might be suitable. This is something just to glance at rather than to go through. To explain to you that we were approached by Galway County Council, who were bidding to be the 2020 European Year of Culture. And I'm not sure what their motives was, but I think they were partly because we were called Europa Nostra, and it would give a very good European sound to the bid. Nevertheless, it was an opportunity, and it was an opportunity started off by a member of Europa Nostra, who is actually the conservation officer for the town of Galway. What is proposed, and what was proposed in the bid, because the bid has been successful and it will happen, it was that we Europa Nostra and ENtopia would collaborate with Galway in actually drawing out the potential of some 20 villages around the city of Galway, which has a population of about 50,000 and it's growing quickly, to work on this set of villages together, and that we, ENtopia, would provide a mentoring service. We would help to sort out how to do it. And just looking here, this was something that was done several months ago before the bid happened, and it was an attempt to show how you would work the process to deal with the first steps and the first stages of what will obviously be a 3-year program to work with all the villages. A very exciting project, and also very, very difficult to manage. So that was the best summary I could make of it. A tool for local communities to develop their own plans with mentoring support available between local community and local ENtopia community support team. That's for the future in a way, because we haven't yet got that structure established. And that is just me.
Thank you, Philip. Before first asking for questions of information and then opening a general discussion on everything we've heard today, I want to add 2 things about ENtopia, as we call it in Greece, ENtopia in Ireland. Doesn't matter. It's been from the beginning, at the core of it has been Irish and Greek involvement, but there is much more involvement than that. And if you want to see more, all you have to do is to look at the Europa Nostra website, and there is a link to the ENtopia website. So there is a separate ENtopia website which you can get to through the Europa Nostra website. There is very active involvement also in Italy, Monte Isola, near Brescia, if I'm not mistaken, in the north of Italy. Sorry?
Brescia, Lombardia.
Yes, Brescia, Lombardia. And in Romania, in Rosia Montana, but also perhaps more generally. There is a great deal of interest in Serbia, some interest in Albania, and there is a lot of interest in Denmark and perhaps Sweden at the present time. So it is gradually growing into becoming a network, and there will be more, I hope, news in the course of this autumn about it becoming much stronger than it has been to date. However, I have to say, with regard to Greece, specifically, this is the second point I want to make, that there are currently 4 island or island communities. 3 of them are whole islands, 1 is part of an island, and in all 4, the program is going extremely well, very, very strongly, working superbly. In the case of Sikinos, which I showed you the bag of course, we got rid of the plastic bags. It's a linen bag island now. This, the monument of Sikinos, we helped do the studies for their restoration. It's been it's now, the Cyclades is regional, in the regional structure plan. It's going to be restored. It's the 2nd century AD Roman mausoleum, which became a Byzantine church in the 12th century. And there's been a whole footpath program in this island too. And in Skiros, also, and in Amaros, I won't go into details, and in a part of Chios, in the mastic villages of Chios. So the program in Greece is working extremely well. So first of all, now questions of information to Philip, and then a general discussion. Yes.
Quickly a question on the collaboration with Galway 2020. You have already started working on this concretely together?
Yeah.
Is it done? I guess it's
Well,
ready for 2020?
we are a bit ahead of them. But it's a very good question that 2020 is looming, but they put an enormous effort into winning, which was fantastic that they did it. And the diagram that I showed you was not meant to be final at all, but it was to try to show them what ENtopia's involvement could be. And you probably saw that it was priced out to be able to give an indication that they could feed into their, into their bid. The reality is that they're only now creating a separate company from the county council in order to run the bid. And we would like to move a little more quickly than that, but we obviously have to fit into it. But they're very happy at the notion that we would make a real start sometime in early 2018. And that also works very well for us. But I mean, I will emphasize that to actually undertake a program with that number of villages, there's quite a lot of work to do to actually raise the awareness and engage in each of the villages separately to get somewhere. So we will have to get going soon enough.
And sorry, the second question, if I may.
Yes.
And how have the villages been chosen? Was it them that said we would like to participate?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
were they approached and there was...
It's a very good question, and I'm glad to be able to deal with it, because Galway City is a well-developed historic city, and it's thriving. The Aran Islands are world-renowned as islands just outside Galway City in Galway Bay. The hinterland of Galway is a kind of lost territory between the Midlands of Ireland, which are good agricultural yielding places, and the amazing western coastline of wild seascape and so on. So there's a place in between with a lot of underdeveloped villages. They're very interesting. Some of them have really powerful historic resonance and heritage. So they were chosen because, in a way, they were the poor friends of the big city, and with the understanding that it would be a great opportunity to raise the awareness in the villages and to develop their own culture in the villages. There is a language issue in the west of Ireland that some of the remnants of the Irish language spoken on a daily basis exist in some of these villages, and that's a very powerful heritage tool, if you like.
The Gaeltacht, if I'm not mistaken.
The Gaeltacht, yes.
Another question, please. We don't have too long. Yes, Lauren?
Philip, could you expand on the, let's say, European network potential or existing aspect of this project? So there's the website.
Yes.
But how do you see, or how has it been happening, or how do you see it developing?
Well, I think the key is the website, for which we have to thank Costa and Eleniki Eteria, because in order to set up a network, you can't do it with nothing. And today, the best way to hope to get one is to use the website. And the website itself is in existence. It has a number of, including the Children of Lear that I mentioned, a number of websites, a number of projects on it. And it is the potential, I think, for the future, that when the website begins to be inhabited by a lot of villages and towns, then the cross-fertilization that is hoped to happen, could happen and should happen, and also the European citizens, I'm not sure what they call it, Citizens Europe, for which funding is available for twinning villages and so on. All those things could be used, but the means to do it are there, but it needs a lot of commitment to be able to move forward. You know, it's waiting to happen. A project like the one in Galway is a major opportunity for us to demonstrate the potential.
May I add something, Dora? You're very well aware that the agreement under which ENtopia began was due to the great success in fundraising for the Athens conference in 2013, our 50th anniversary. It went extremely well, and the condition that was set was that money be spent in Greece, and this is the website, that's what Philip was referring to, was created in Greece, but now, of course, is based in so far as websites are based anywhere in The Hague. Now, however, beyond that, Europa Nostra made clear from the very, very beginning that any funding must come through European programs. And as you know, and as some in this room know, but many and most do not know, there is an attempt beginning now, which is of absolutely crucial importance to the future of ENtopia, namely to get a European program. And there is a way through using another Europa Nostra award, the Hermes program, to do that. And that is what we've been working on yesterday. You were involved, you know about it. But this is crucial to the future of ENtopia, because from the moment that there is substance in it, and this is the lesson of Greece too, and this is the lesson of Galway too, when there is substance for the local communities, then the thing from being theoretical becomes actual action. Action and commitment, and local commitment. Very strong local commitment. And we have, in some cases, the opposite of mentoring. As I said to you yesterday evening, in one of our meetings in the mastic villages of Chios, in fact, we went thinking that we would suggest something, and we did the opposite, not the opposite, but something different from what we thought, because the villagers themselves wanted something else, gave priority to something else. So it becomes a very live dialogue. And that, of course, is exactly as it should be. But there is something more than that. It becomes a pan-European attempt to live the values of cultural heritage and environmental sustainability. And that is fundamental for the small communities of Europe. That's what will give them life in the future, but that's also something that will give Europa Nostra strength in the future, if and to the degree that we are behind it, as at the present time we are. Now, any other points anybody wants to make? Because we're very near the end of our time, but we have time for, we have 3 minutes. If anybody wants to make another point? No? No. Good. Thank you very much. Thank all the speakers. They were all excellent. We learned a great... Oh, sorry. Yes.
Before we leave the lecture room, I'd like to point out that there are, in front of the room, a few English and Finnish leaflets.
I strongly recommend them. It's about adopting a monument. It's a Grand Prix last year for Finland, and it was the first talk that we had, and it's absolutely outstanding. It's very, very good indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being with us.